Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the Vault. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the Vault, episode 532. So we've done a bunch of episodes. Always appreciate everybody that's listened this far. We've actually have a guest coming back on tonight. Abundant Returns. We're definitely going to be putting their details in this episode, so just feel free to be looking into the details section or the comments section, and you'll see the details for this particular business. Always appreciate Abundant Returns for coming through. We have Larissa for coming through tonight, and definitely appreciate you for coming through and going over a highly important episode. It could be a very long one because we've been doing this for years. Even yourself.
Oh boy.
We
Okay.
actually have done some work together. We've done a workshop together. We've done interviews before. Let's start out there. How are you, first of all?
Doing great. Doing
Excellent.
great.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you for coming. Thank you. What was
Thank you
the
for having.
feedback from that last workshop from people that did reach out that they said that maybe you said that piqued their interest to reach out to you?
Oh, Christian, it's been a while.
It has. I know, but I mean, you probably get the same type of things most people say, when they reach out to you.
Well, I can tell you the issue that we've been running into
Great.
with a lot of people who have trust. Well, a lot of people who have businesses, just businesses, is they don't know where they're going. They don't know what they want. They just say, okay, I'm here, fix me. And it's like, okay, well, why do you have this trust? What are you going to do with it? What assets is it going to hold? How is it going to bring in money? And they have a big question mark on their face. I don't know why. Like I'm asking them the mystery of the world, but I can't do any planning. I specialize in tax planning to make sure you pay as little as possible. And most of the time, that's zero. But I can't do any planning around, I don't know. So that's the problem I've been running into.
Great. And it's interesting that you make that point because we were talking to some entrepreneurs the other day. We are like, man, we don't want to babysit entrepreneurs because people call themselves entrepreneurs, but they don't know what they want. Sometimes they don't know the end destination. We sat in front of an entrepreneur the other day. Literally says they have a $1 million, actually about a $3+ million revenue business. They're a contractor. So we never give names, but we will state the business demo so you all can hear where this entrepreneur is at. Entrepreneur is a family, actually has a husband, has a wife involved, and has a daughter involved. What do you think? Those are the main three people that have access to sensitive information. The business is operating in multiple states. They're doing multiple contracts of remodeling homes. And so now you can see that there could be possible issues, whether it's with licensing, whether it's with operations. Well, okay, when you ask the entrepreneur, what's their problem, and they tell you that, hey, look, we don't have our processes automated. We're very antiquated. We have paper processes. We don't really have standard operating procedures in place. We haven't evolved into the past 2020 era of we need to digitize our business and we need to have a team. So we're going to go on this particular episode with you, Larissa, and stick to the team element of accounting because even in this particular business with the family, they actually stated that uh, they were doing the accounting on their own. So this is a very QuickBooks type operation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is over a $3 million operation. No doubt about it. So
Ooh,
over a
no.
$3 million operation. Um, Whoever's doing the books, they're the only one really doing the books. I asked the senior, which is the father, I say, hey, so if something happens to you, do you have key man insurance? Listen to how scary the times we're living in. No, they don't. So if
Mm.
something happens, they don't have any money to replace them in the business for the family to have any type of capital to immediately replace and find a CEO that can handle literally an asset, which is I mean, when you have a $3 million venture, it's not a bad baby. You know what I mean? This is a good baby right here. This baby, she might have did a lot wrong, but she's right now at $3 million plus in revenue.
Hmm.
That's not somebody's job. That's you going out, hustling hard, putting in sweat and hard work, and now you could lose it overnight because families are not prepared. So when we talk to Larissa about having a team in place, we're talking about having an accounting team in place. Someone says, "Oh, well, how much should I be prepared to pay for the books for $1 million company?" Just something like that. We say they're 3 million plus, but let's just say if you give a range over $1 million, how much should they expect for a cost for bookkeeping on a monthly basis on the average market general, Larissa, for tax accounting?
Well, I it varies.
I
It
know.
it it just really depends on what else is going on. But $1 million business,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you're probably looking at least close to $1,000 a month.
Right. Cheap. Cheapskate. And if you don't want to be the person that puts that in place, now you know why you won't have $1 million business, ladies and gentlemen. And this is somebody that deals with $1 million businesses. So she can tell you that yes, we do consult for $1,000 minimum a month. I'm not saying she does, but the market does. So you all can see the cost that it costs to outsource that from your family member. That's a ticking time bomb.
That's true.
This is how much it's going to cost, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about digital possible, Larissa. So let's just say someone wants to digitize that process, $1 million business, invoicing business, upselling business, but they're not too tech oriented. Definitely not tech oriented. So invoicing are very much so, hey, we're doing it maybe through like some QuickBooks, through some email, something like that. What would you say now should be a cost for them to really get it digital and streamlined to where they can pull up something on not an app, but they can log into a back office?
Hmm. You mean them doing it themselves?
Not them doing themselves. No, actually, somebody else still. We should outsource. I think that just them knowing the outsource cost, because them insourcing is no real insource cost. They're either gonna have to hire someone in house to do the same thing that they're gonna hire someone to do outsource. It's just the same job. It's just someone's working for another company, or you're gonna bring them in house and you're gonna, where you give them stock options or something in the company. But you know,
Yeah, if you had someone working for you, you know you'd pay them more than 12,000 a year for bookkeep. If you had a full-time bookkeeper. So you got to think about what kind of a job do I want done? Do do I want somebody that's just going to throw some numbers in there and that's it, or do I want somebody to really do the bookkeeping, the accounting work? I get a lot of clients come to me and say, "Oh, Sue, my friend did the bookkeeping, and they don't have a balance sheet." That's part of bookkeeping is to have a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow statement. So if you don't have all three of those, you have not had any bookkeeping done. So, I mean, there's nothing we can do with it because part of the tax return includes the information from the balance sheet when you run a business. And if we don't have that, we cannot complete your tax return accurately. So it just depends on what you want. The other issue is once you have this bookkeeping done, we're able to advise you on what you're doing, how your business is running, and ways to increase your revenues because we can see traditionally what the business does on these reports and ways that we can increase the information. I mean, I'm not the information, the income, which most the people that's what they want. I,
Ultimately, you would think, people want to increase their income. And then when we sit down and talk to them, they're almost more fearful of, like you say, paying more taxes than they are of increasing their income. And so we could almost say that. And it's not just because we want to say it, it's that facts that when we're talking to entrepreneurs, like you say, what do you want?
yeah,
Oh, well, yeah, if when we get down to it, the whole picture is what you want, not one part of it. There is no one part of it. It's the whole picture. The whole picture may involve, like you say, taxes. The whole picture may involve growing the revenue. But those are two separate things, but they're still part of the whole picture.
that's right.
So we definitely wanted to. We appreciate you, addressing whether it's trustees, because trustees definitely come through and they say, well, how am I going to contribute assets to the trust? Well, let's think about that. You might want to do that. There's many
Yeah.
ways to do that. And so it does get to them, make them get to the heart of the matter. How do I contribute without having a job? Some of them want to avoid jobs, so they have to think entrepreneurially and things of that nature. So we see that come through a lot. It's just one of those things where you got to be willing to give up a piece of your baby. And most entrepreneurs, when they built it up, that entrepreneur with the over 3 million in revenue has been in business for over 20 years. Same business. Actually left the business from another successful Fortune 500 company and went into business for themselves. So that particular entrepreneur is fairly confident that they can keep doing what they're doing and it's not going to completely fall apart yet. But market conditions say otherwise. So talk about, Larissa, how someone previous to not working with you, they had a result. And now, what's the result after working with someone of your caliber when it comes to the accounting?
Oh, I got a good example for you. I had a client come in and he had already had his taxes done and he owed $986,000.
Hmm.
And he no 983, but he was really upset because he couldn't understand why. And the reason was he had a CPA that half did his accounting. um they never even asked him for his American Express. His business made 3.4 million. They didn't take into account his American Express. So all of the deductions that he had there, which that's what he uses for almost everything, were not accounted for. So when you owe nine, let's just say, call it $1 million. You owe $1 million. That's you must have made $3 million. So the only expenses it looks like they took into account was just whatever that other $400,000 worth of expenses. So they didn't do anything. Pretty much. They didn't do anything. When I finished, he got a $1,600 refund. And that's with some really bad records. We couldn't get what we needed, but we made it work. He was happy, and the IRS was happy too. So,
That's
but
good.
going forward, we're putting a plan together for him so that a tax plan so that he won't have that issue. He can make as much money as he wants to make as long as he's got the tax plan in place that tells where the money needs to go so that it creates tax deductions. And that's the whole key to it. That's what all the people who make a lot of money do. They have a fancy attorney who puts together this tax plan that has them paying zero taxes. And it's all 100% legal, but you do need to know the tax law and you've got to be able to substantiate each of the transactions that happen. For instance, maybe your business will lease your car. So you have to be able to show where that transaction happened in your bookkeeping.
Right.
So if it's not categorized correctly, then that doesn't help because it's not there. And if you didn't make the payment, that doesn't help because it's not there.
Right.
And the main thing that we do is provide the documentation so that the IRS is satisfied, and then you're fine.
And it's so critical to hear you say that. I was so anticipating you say that word, and then you said the word, and it's like exactly when you provide the documentation, then the substantiation is there. So
Yep,
it's one of those things where you have so many people say, "Oh man, there's one trustee, oh, I saved the receipts." Right? So won't you just do the bookkeeping? But it's so many trustees that say, "Oh man, I don't want to do the bookkeeping." It's like, well, you have to turn over the books. Where are the books at? Do you have the books? What do the books look like? Oh man, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Well, if you don't have the books, then you don't have anything.
that's right. Gotta have them, especially with a trust. That's major. Maybe if you're just doing a little side gig or something, you could get away with it. But when you're talking about a trust, it's a whole different ball game for the accounting piece, because should the trust get audited, the IRS is going to want to see your bookkeeping. If you don't have any, they're not going to give you any kind of write-offs. You're just out of luck.
Right. And it's interesting because so many people are scared to get audited. So, have you ever seen one get audited? And could you talk about that process? And, have you dealt with one that you would like to share a story with in particular?
Let me see. No, I've never had a trust audited,
Okay, great, great, great.
but I think that's only because of the detailed attention that we pay to make sure we get everything correct.
Okay.
Because a trust pays more taxes than any other entity. So if you get run into trouble there, you're in trouble. You're in for a big tax bill. So that's why we make sure we do the bookkeeping correctly. We've got everything available to substantiate each of the transactions, each of the deductions that are on the return, so that there is not a problem.
Okay. And so, what happens, do you think, with trustees or people that they can't come up with the information? Let's talk about these Joe Rockheads real quick. As the old timers would say around when we were younger. These Joe Rockheads that they say, oh, I couldn't put it all together. I just couldn't get the documents. Now, somebody sat here and said live and in color, I took someone from a $900,000 bill and gave him a $1,600 return, and someone sitting here saying, "Oh man, I don't have 900,000, but I got about 300, and I'm not sure what I should do."
Well, you better have some documentation, that's for sure.
Right.
Um, there is no, I can't pull it together. Well, we can't do your return. I mean, we've got to have information. That's it. That's the biggest problem all tax preparers have, is getting the information from the client. But as long as we can get it, we can do as much as can be done for you. But if you can only prove 200,000 and you got 300,000, you got $100,000 problem.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So here we go. We have trustee residence is actually in Illinois. Uh, they have a sale of a company coming up, uh, and says though we would say that there's an LLC, and as well there is a sole prop that they are operating out of to a degree. And
Okay.
so even the sale of the property most likely is going to be from the buyer is going to buy the LLC. They're going to buy the assets, which are the intellectual property that they're buying. It's a tech company. Tech companies created some intellectual property for some marketing stuff, and yeah, they're going to get bought. Uh, so they're going to buy the IP and the assets of the actual company. So it's a complete sale. It's going to be a complete what the trustee know, which is was it capital gains. So they're very aware of that if that's going to be the case. So outside of that, they're trying to avoid just completely that. They understand that if it's done personally, it's going to be taken that way. And so you want to hear that, oh yeah, you got every return in place. Well, they don't have every return in place. So this is another thing where you deal with entrepreneurs and they say, well, I don't have all these documents in place. Well, if you don't have all those documents in place and somebody's still trying to buy your company, you're actually really called lucky now. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
really.
All right. So now this is where people like Larissa come in place. Why? Because not only does she know that you're getting ready to try to sell your company, but she also can say, okay, because of what you need, these are the way you want to not doctor up, but you want to present what you've done previously.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you don't have a return to show, there's no way you can fake the funk. You don't have a return, don't have a return. There's nothing else to talk about. But when you don't have a return, now, okay, like we talked about, let's go here. When you don't, do you have P&Ls? Do you have 12 P&Ls for the previous years? Do you think those would be considered something to show inside of the sale of a company, Larissa?
Well, anytime people who are looking to buy a company, they want to see the financials, yes. P&Ls, balance sheets, and tax returns. So I don't see how you can sell it without that.
Correct. And you think about that now. Now let's just say, and this is where buy sellers don't want to get comfortable. Oh man, I thought I was doing right. I created a business, but I didn't create it in the right structure. Go ahead and speak to that, Larissa.
Well, what it depends on what right. Right for what? What do they mean?
They basically they have intellectual property. So you
Oh,
created a business and quote unquote you didn't create the right structure.
well, you can work with any of them.
Okay.
I guess it just depends on what you're trying to do. Some entity structures are better than others, but and you can also switch if you, I mean, if you have the time, you can switch to another entity. So you're not stuck, but you do need to get some guidance so that you know what you're doing.
So you know what's interesting is when you talk to trustees that even this trustee in particular that we're talking about, they share stories with us about Cook Islands Trust. They share with us some Rosen Trust or something of that nature. They share with us these the spendthrift. They share with us the spendthrift. What's your thoughts on the spendthrift?
I'm kind of going back and forth. I'm just getting into studying how that works because I have a couple of clients that came in to say, okay, that means we never have to file a personal tax return and we never have to pay taxes on anything. And I thought, then your documentation better be tight because if you file a trust return and it says that you have a profit, I think trusts are taxed at what, 37%?
Right,
You gonna have to pay.
right.
So I don't know. I'm still working on that spendthrift. I was like, I don't think that's right. One of my mentors said, no, it doesn't work like that.
And it's interesting. Like we can share with you a website that we've seen with it. These guys are talking that talk. It's just, it's is it just the talk of the town? I mean, we know who these guys are. That's the bottom line. We know who these guys are, and of course, it's a public trust. It has public law written into it. Sure, they got the law passed, but they still got a public law to be in place to say that this is what they're doing. So they're protected. It's almost like one of those things like if you say the trust is private, how's it private if these people have access to things that you don't want to ever have access to it? Oh,
No.
because they created the trust. See, those are small holes that we can poke at the bear that these guys say that they're dominating the marketplace. With a some thousands of dollars entity. That's supposedly like you say those stats that you just or those attributes that you just named. Those are the things that we heard. Oh, that you can do this and do that, and so we're being very direct. Those are things that you're going to get challenged. Even someone that's been in the profession longer than we have, when you hear her, she's telling you that's not necessarily something you just want to jump straight into. Why? Because she's not confident to defend you in that. But there are other vehicles that she's confident to defend you in, and that's just one where it's those are these new age things. You all can look into them yourselves, but just like your Larissa's looking into them. Yeah, it's a very newer entity that's in the marketplace that you have to kind of look into and see what's the benefits. You just don't jump on the bandwagon like these guys are over the internet because that's what's going on. So
Oh, that's what. So it is. Okay.
yeah,
I
it's a bandwagon thing.
I was concerned. I was like, I don't get it, and if I don't get it, I can't do it.
Okay, great, great.
But I wanted to ask you, it's another trust somebody came in with, and they talked about the, what is it, the fabulous, some kind of dividends. I can't think of how what they said. I know the tax code is like 698, 643.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not actually. I'm about to learn something new right now. Let you tell it.
Well, it's kind of sketchy because these guys, there's two partners, and they had to go and get an attorney to write an opinion in order to keep with their tax records to make it I don't know, I want to say legal.
Yeah.
And I was like, because see, the issue is the tax law is up to your interpretation. So if you can go to court and defend that and get the judge to believe what you're saying and go with you on your side, then fine. If not, you're going to pay a whole lot of taxes. And that's the problem. That's the whole problem.
Okay. I mean, well, it comes down to simple accounting anyway. So I mean, if a person understands that it's accounting, and that was something we almost wanted to theme this episode after was just understanding the basic gap principles and getting introduced to the gap principles as an entrepreneur. What would you say, as an educational piece, Larissa, talking to entrepreneurs across the states that are going to engage with you or just in general, what would you say could be a great entry level way of introducing themselves to accounting in the states and particularly with gap?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, Introductory way. So you're looking for a book or something?
Just something, just even a word of advice, just something that you say to an entrepreneur when they don't even have they have a $3 million business. They're doing well, but they have no idea about real accounting in the company. What would you say to them as a word of advice?
Oh, okay. If they're doing $3 million, they need to pay for an accountant to
Thank you.
do it right.
Well, let's just say they say, okay, I have an accountant that does the taxes. See how they talk?
Uh-huh.
That's how they talk to you guys. Y'all don't want to hear that, but that's how they talk to us. Isn't that what they say, Larissa? I had an
Yep.
accountant that does the taxes. Right. But do you have a monthly bookkeeping system?
Nope. Well, okay. Here's what I got. If they are just adamant about not wanting to do that, the easiest way, what I tell my beginning entrepreneurs is to just use an Excel spreadsheet. On one sheet, record all of the income, the date, who you got the money from, what it was for, and how much it was. Record that on one sheet. On the second sheet, record all of your expenses, same information, date, how much you spent, who you paid it out to, and what it was for. If that's, I mean, if you can do that for all of the money you spend, we could actually put a tax return together for you.
Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Eh,
But you
Go
you
ahead.
have to have something. You can't just go in there and say, "Oh, I don't know."
Now, surprisingly, people say, "Oh, I'm going to use the bank statement." I'm gonna go here with you now, Larissa. Oh, I'm gonna use the bank statement. How does the bank statement suffice? Let's talk about it. How does the bank statement suffice? Do we really need to do the Excel? And you think about it, the Excel is the second layer outside of the bank because that's the default.
Mm-hmm. But the bank statement, what if you got a lot of personal expenses on there? So it's not everything that's on the bank statement, but you still need to put it into categories so we can do your tax return. So that's why we need the sheet to tell us what category it is. Like, is it for supplies or did you pay for meals? So that's the information. That's the way we put it on the tax return is what category did that expense fall into?
And so we've actually had people, even that particular, we had one trustee come through recently and say, "Oh, well, what did they say? Which one doesn't have to file?" Oh man, I don't want to say it's the Sprinter, like you said. It was one recently they came through and said they even talked about the Cook Island one, and yeah, like, are you familiar with a special purpose LLC?
Special purpose. No. What?
Okay, I think we got to look into this one for sure. This is one that one of the mentors, accountant partners, has a law passed as well for a special kind of LLC that once again, you go in. There's obviously he's defended it in court. He's won in court with it, but it's just a great, entity that he's won. Is minimal liability, and he's making sure just like you're good in place, you're good in place. So, and what do you think about being a trustee for someone's trust if they ask you to be the accountant inside of the trust as a trustee, though? What would you say to that?
Well, I wouldn't be the trustee. I
Okay.
would do the accounting work.
Okay.
You could hire me to do that, but
Okay.
no, I would not be their trustee.
Okay, great. And see, ladies and gentlemen, this is she's giving you clarity so you all can be aware of what is what their job is, what their role is, and what the role of the trustee is. The trustee's role is the trustee's role. The accountant's role is the accountant's role. So you all are very keen on being able to distinguish right now, what's the roles of these different parties, and they're not the same. They are definitely not the same. So,
Hmm.
alrighty. Uh, cases. It's always good to give cases where I guess everybody wants to hear best case scenario, but they also want to hear worst case scenario. And sometimes when you're dealing with pros, it's bad to say like what's a bad scenario. It's just we'll think of one for you, but um, someone said something about an authorized express trust and using an authorized person. Uh, Yeah, it's so many different, things out here. That's why we asked you, Larissa, what is a great place to go to get their accounting verbally, their verbal game up? Is it just, hey, go to a college real quick and go get some knowledge, or what? How do they take the shortcut in learning how to get adept in having a financial conversation with an accountant that's of your caliber, CPA level status, that type of caliber?
Well, I would recommend getting that book, Accounting for Dummies.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, because even I know it says it's calling you, a dummy, but
Mm-hmm.
you are till you know something. So,
Right.
but it breaks it down so simply
Mm-hmm.
in layman's terms, so you can understand,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any other way. If you don't know anything about accounting, that's going to be the best way. Just get that book, and then you can at least have an intelligent conversation because
Okay, they're busy. This entrepreneur is busy.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, if they don't have time to worry about their money, then they got a problem. They got a real problem.
Exactly. And this is where, once again, we run into these entrepreneurs, Larissa included. You run into the entrepreneur that that's literally what they'll say. You wonder, like, well, okay, do you have a money problem or do you have other problems? And then we find out that they don't know what they want. So it's not a money problem. You're right. They're revenuing hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it's not a money problem. It's a them problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about it, Larissa. Go ahead and speak to that. Have you seen entrepreneurs make it over $1 million in revenue, and you wonder how did they wake up and remember what shoe to put on the right foot today?
Now, see, Christian. Well, I know they got to the office, so they're doing all right.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody has their foibles, as one of the mentors say. Everybody does. At the end of the day, once again, some people don't have those limiting beliefs towards money. Some people might have limiting beliefs towards other things, but not towards the money, not towards accounting, not towards putting together a team. We talked to an entrepreneur earlier, said, yeah, why don't you just cold call accountants? Well, I don't want to cold call an accountant. Why not? You got to find an accountant. Why not just Google the best accountants in your area and find an accountant and interview them? And ask them, can you take them to coffee? What's the best way to get in your calendar? Is it just literally to go to your website and book a consultation?
Yeah, that or either call the office.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because yeah.
it's just so important to have these type of conversations in the public, versus when it comes to this whole like accounting situation. When would you say someone this is what they say? I needed to get someone in place for the bookkeeping, and so we'll say, well, when do you need to do that? And they'll say right now. We'll say like you say. So are you making any money right now? And they'll say no. So do they need someone in place?
Well, no, there's no place if there's no money.
Thank you. Go get
Um,
some money.
yeah, you need money. That's that's the bottom line. You definitely need some money.
Why not? Like, what do you need an accountant for if you don't have money coming in? That's what it's about. And so, and here's somebody try to say, "Oh man, I'm afraid to go open up this or do something here," and it's like, well, are you gonna do business or are you gonna bring any money or what? Like, you're right. You don't need to open up accounts and things if you're just having assets sit inside of a shell.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. What's the
yeah,
point?
right. But they don't understand. Some people don't understand that bank accounts are for you having to it because it's a person. It may have to have a bank account.
Hmm.
That's it. It's not even a have to. It's a may. And so, explaining those things to entrepreneurs nowadays is this whole, oh, let me get on the internet and tell everybody you can start a business and it's easy. You'll get business credit attached to it overnight. Yeah, right. So we want to talk about this the element that we sit in the room with high net worth investors, and we were sitting in an event literally a few days ago, 2 days ago or yesterday, and they were talking about accounting as being an element of how do you select these people? How do you select the right systems? Because we're in a high net worth investor environment, so when you're dealing with a family that, I mean, think about it, like you didn't have one LLC to become a 100 millionaire, a centimillionaire. You didn't have one LLC. It doesn't work that way. So let's just say you have three. Some people say, "Oh man, really?" Yeah. Some people might have 20 because they had so many businesses in different jurisdictions. They are at $100 million, and they have 20 different LLCs, or they're in different countries and they have it spread out. So that's the type of advisory that's what would you say to that type of advisory, Larissa? Do you like that type of advisory?
Yes, I like that a lot.
Okay.
That is my favorite type of client to work with is a serial entrepreneur,
Okay.
somebody that has, lots of businesses. I ran into a client that has, what did he have? 42 businesses. So it challenges my strategic abilities to put his plan together.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited about that. So yes, it's a wonderful, but it's not cheap either.
Right.
Because you've got to pay.
Right.
You've got to pay for each business because there are certain things that have to be done for each business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where people run into problems. I have another client that some of his businesses don't do anything. And I said, well, why do you have them? Because the fact that you have an EIN number means you need to file a tax return. So with that comes a cost. If if you're not going to use the business, why do you have it? But he had no answers. He just wants to have a business.
These are
I,
people. These are bodies that are walking around on the planet, and this is what they say. And these are people that walk through your door, and they almost might cut you a check for thousands of dollars, and still you might wonder, why are you sitting in my office? So just to let you all know, the risk at us, we're very aware of these type of clientele, and there's a few things you can do with them. And so we've learned over the years, how to communicate with them that hey, this is the best way we work, and this is the best way we can work with you. And if that's not possible, then it's okay. In life, there's at this current moment over 7+ billion people, going to 8 billion plus people in the world. So you're not gonna meet everybody here. So it's fair to say, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to find people that want to work with you. And it's interesting that you like the more complex structures, those complex things, and knowing that you literally have, it's like, oh, you don't even just have the first grade knowledge of IRS, you have all the way up to the 12th grade knowledge. So you got the trigonometry and all of those good things inside of you as far as knowledge base. So when clientele come to you specifically for accounting, they're getting almost like an inside man, if you know what I mean, inside woman, if you know what I mean, no pun intended, if you know what I mean.
okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because
Well,
you think about that. You have taken an education that most people are scared of what they call the what do they call it? The opposition or something? Like they call the IRS the opposition or something. Instead of working with
yeah,
them.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I am first and foremost a tax strategist.
Okay.
So that is my forte,
Okay.
is figuring out how how your finances need to be so that you pay the least amount of taxes.
Okay.
But I used to work for the IRS, and I also am an enrolled agent,
Right.
means I am licensed by the IRS and I can represent you like if you just like an attorney would,
Right.
but it's the highest certification that the IRS has. So I am versed in tax law. So that means I know how it needs to go legally. So yeah, you get a lot when you come to see me. This is true.
Oh, for sure, definitely. And I think since we've been in the game, there's something that we don't hear people really talk about it in public. I don't know if you watch any of these internet podcasts or these people on the internet talking about financial literacy and generational wealth. We don't really hear them talking about fortifying yourself with a team of sluggers such as yourself. That's an enrolled agent. That is a huge compliment. That is a huge a stripe and feather in your cap when you're doing business out here in the marketplace, to have someone that is licensed, like you say, that has passed the test, and that they're right there. They're at the cutting edge of, like you say, the laws of that country. They're literally telling you, hey, we decided to a degree, specialize our lives in this particular subject matter, and so we're pretty much the best of the best when it comes to this particular subject matter right now.
Hmm. Yes, this is true.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to meet those type of people. It's like, if we were going to space, I would want you to know how to run the rocket ship. And so,
Thank you.
yeah, you know, when you meet those people, it's good to have those people around, and really always integrate them into what you're doing, because there's so much upside from not just them doing the work, but the questions. Because sometimes people say, "Oh, I can't afford the best of the best services." Our mentors educated us to go get the best of the best services regardless. So when people say, "Oh, I can't afford the best of the best services," what would you say to that? Knowing that you started out in business just like everyone else, what would you say to someone just in general? Like, they're saying this to you, like, "Oh, I don't know if I can afford the best of the best services starting out."
What would I say? Well, maybe it'd be good to just pay for a little advice.
Thank you.
My, my team is actually made up of advisors. I
Hmm.
have a business consultant, an attorney, a mortgage specialist, and I have one of my team members has an MBA. Um, we have we're versed in being able to get the financial aspect of whatever you're trying to do done. So if you come to us, maybe you don't get your taxes done, but you come and sit for an hour just to ask the questions you need so you'll know where to go. Just like, okay, I can't afford bookkeeping. What should I do? And I say, okay, get an Excel spreadsheet. So you've got that taken care of until you start making enough money where you can afford a full-time bookkeeper or a bookkeeper anyway. But just get some advice. I can't even tell you how many mentors I've had during my time that I've been trying to run this business. But if I need to know something, I have to go ask somebody that knows. That's all. I mean, I read a lot. I've got a lot of books and I use the internet to look at things, but it's nothing like somebody who's been in the business for a while talking to you about whatever the issue is.
Very much so. That's that. That's something you can almost say is irreplaceable, whether it's
Yep.
experience of your own or someone else's, and their long-standing experience, and then their compounded experience. So, it's a very critical, quote-unquote, thing to have that experience right there with you. So, we definitely appreciate you, Larissa, for coming on today. We definitely post your information for the company and the details. We definitely wanted everybody on today to see that it's not even just Larissa, it's a team. So when you all are in trust, quote unquote, you're thinking about building a team. But I want to highlight what you said, and that's something that's critical right here, which is getting a consultation. Because so many people, they've reached out for years, they would pay to get a consultation. Now it's like nowadays, oh man, do I gotta pay for a consultation? Everybody's giving out free consultations. Well, listen here, ladies and gentlemen. Some things are free. You don't see people trying to, they don't need a Ferrari commercial for a reason.
That's right.
So some companies don't need that type of publicity, but they still can get the job done. And so when we even talk about putting together your team, we sit in a room with people such as Larissa all the time. The thing about it is, it's good for you to at least have access to these people, one, and two, actually getting in contact with them. And they are accessible, whether it's through a professional website such as a LinkedIn, or like you say, through a consultation that's free on their website. You still can get an hour session with them. It's not, oh, I need you for a tax return for thousands of dollars. No, it's, I need your ear. It was this meme, actually. We'll end on this one. There's this meme recently that popped up on the internet where this entertainer Jay Z, someone said, "Oh, would you rather have dinner with Jay Z or give $500, $500,000?" Well, surprisingly enough, they interviewed Jay Z, and then he says, I wouldn't give dinner with me. I would eat the meal. I mean, I would take the money. Now, this is coming from somebody that understands it's actually about your thoughts, what you know. So if you have great thoughts already, you're right. All you needed was the money. He all he needed was the money. It don't matter how many times he has the money because he has it in his thoughts.
That's true.
Whereas as dinner with him, he already knows, what am I going to talk to you about? I don't. If you don't know anything, you do need to talk to him. But he actually knows, so he doesn't need to talk to him again. He doesn't need to have dinner with himself. He doesn't want to have dinner with anybody. He wants to get the job done with 500K because that's what he really needed. He didn't need the dinner with them. So there's just a difference in thought process when we even talk about building a team or interviewing people. It's oh, I gotta pay to talk to someone for an hour.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep.
The way it goes. And yeah, I paid a lot of money. I had mentors that I paid, I think 1,500 a month, I think was the most that I paid a mentor. The rest of them were varying amounts, but less than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, oh my God, I thought that was so much money at the time. But that man gave me so much information and I had access to him a lot of times. So I probably was driving him crazy, but I thought, for this $18,000, you gonna tell me?
Ha ha ha, right? And so you did get your money's worth. And so
I did
it's not a
more than
forever thing either, people.
right.
It's a temporary period where she's educating herself to where she can stay afloat in a competitive environment where, her mentor is going to leave, and now she has that knowledge where she can continue to carry that torch and still provide value to the marketplace at that level or higher. So
That's
it's
right.
very
It
important. We
worked.
appreciate you actually like knowing, saying that even as a senior, like, yeah, I've been mentored, I still do to this day. And it's interesting
Yep.
because you hear entrepreneurs that don't say, oh, I don't read. And it's almost like, well, we know you're not going to make it. It's sink or swim out here. But if you're not reading and what we're talking about, we know what type of entrepreneur you are. The best of us are reading, ladies and gentlemen. That's kind of. How are you taking in
I-
content? Are you taking it through Audible, or are you doing reading physical books?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, as have aged, my eyes get tired, so then I turn on the Audible. But I prefer to read it myself, actually.
Okay. Great.
Old school.
Okay. Hey, those things are very much so important. Touching the words, seeing the words black and white on a piece of paper makes a difference than looking at it with a matte color on the screen sometimes. And Audible just depends on the type of learner you are. Some people are Audible learners, so they can just catch a whole book. It just depends. So it's good to have that variant now. I appreciate you, Bezos, for presenting Audible to us, and whoever else created that. So yeah, that was that. We appreciate you for for coming forth tonight and having that candid conversation with people about accounting, very general, and particularly towards trust and trusteeship and business in general. It's so much more we could talk about. We definitely appreciate you, and because there's so much more that you can present, and talk about. It's just so many small things that the entrepreneurs will say, "Well, I didn't outsource my accounting yet." So guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Let's end on this. Talk about opportunity cost loss with you. So somebody that's making that over there making over that million and they didn't outsource yet to you, Larissa. What would you say to them?
Mm. Well,
The opportunity cost loss.
the opportunity cost loss. Well, see, I've been told I get better results than most other accountants because I'm very detailed and I know the tax law. So there are some tax strategies you can apply after the year is gone. So I'm able to help people get, you know, decrease their tax liability to the absolute minimum. But if you don't do that, if you don't come to me, then you're probably paying Uncle Sam this year with your $1 million business. Uncle Sam wants about a third of whatever you make, right?
Correct.
So what I do is try to minimize that. So that
And give an example, even tied to that example where you have multiple family members that are in the business with you. Because I could easily tell you like two or three families that we've had engaged in the past few months that their wife's in the business, so it's the husband, it's the wife, and it's at least one or two more family members. Could be a child, could be a niece or a nephew. They're involved in the business.
the biggest problem I see with the family members in the business is the whoever's running the business feels like they don't have to pay them. They can just slide them a few dollars here and there, and what they're doing is limiting their write-offs, and that's a problem. So what we do is put together a plan that would take into account everybody that's involved, and so that everybody can get the maximum write-offs possible, and then look at their each of their personal situations to make sure everything works for everybody.
Right. And so, this is one of those things. Okay, Larissa, I say, okay, this is a sad sight to hear. Oh man, I'm working what? Maybe 50, 60 hours a week as an entrepreneur. I got these different businesses. I got a business. Hey, how much time is it really going to take, Larissa, for me and my family to actually put this plan in place?
How much time does it
Oh,
take?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Probably about to get everything in order, probably about 2 weeks after we get all the information. The biggest problem is people just don't give us everything we ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't start until we have it all. Have you ever tried to work a puzzle and not have all the pieces? It
Ha.
doesn't. So once we have all the information, we can get the plan done in about 2 weeks.
Okay. So even still, the family says, okay, how long is it going to take for us to gather this information that we got to get to you? Give us some of the tags that might possibly be inside of the request of what you need.
Your last 2 years tax returns, your last 2 years financial statements, that's your profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow statement, and also we need the general ledger. Your whatever, what assets do you have? What equipment and furniture do you have? Um, what else? If we had all of that, we probably could do, oh, if you have any loans, and then the biggest question is, what are you trying to do?
Right.
So we need to know where you're going. What are we working towards? How should I put this plan together so that your paperwork will support whatever ventures you choose to do next? So the biggest issue is, where are you going? What do you want?
It's interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs don't think that they're going to sell their businesses from what we hear. 90% of them don't think they're going to sell their businesses. They end up working in the business and not working on it. And that's something that we really see a lot of entrepreneurs have fallen into that. And to see how you've diversified yourself out of that trap by surrounding yourself with advisors on the team, that's literally where you get into families just end up coming to you and say, hey, I need you to manage our whole situation. We need you to manage our family estate. We need you to make sure that everybody's within budget every month. We'll meet with you once a month. We'll come to you and you guys will advise us on, whether you guys are investing our money or how much money we have to invest based off of us working our plan. And think about that, Larissa. That's really only 12 meetings a year.
That's true.
So, ladies and gentlemen, families talk about, oh, do I need to have an advisor such as a Larissa around? You're darn right you need to pay her $1,000 a month plus to say, hey, can you sit on a call with us and go over, our structure plan after we put that plan together? Of course, it's $12,000 when you taking a business now from $4 million to $12 million. See, when you go to $12 million, $12,000 is not a lot of money. That's called lucky. You're getting over the hair of your chinny chin chin. But oh boy, do you all know when you all get in that space, the price is going up, ladies and gentlemen. Inflation is going to make these prices more and more expensive for you all to get what people think is wealth information, wealth services from someone such as Larissa and try to get it on a cheapskate. Like, no. But as far as consultations, we would definitely say reach out for sure because it's unfortunate that people say, "Oh man, I can't hire them in house." Yeah, you can't, but not hiring them at all and having their expertise around, you sound like you're okay with being the smartest person in the room. And if we already know how that one goes,
Yeah, we do.
so we appreciate you, Larissa, for showing us that we're definitely not the smartest person in the room, and we're happy that we have someone that is actually one of the smartest person in the room, most credible people in the room, and it's just so important to know that they have those people out there. You can associate yourself with these people and make it a point to have them close to you, so when you can have them close to you, you can have the advice that you need and get the questions and answers that you need, answers to your questions. So thank you for coming on and talking the accounting 101 for trustees because this has been something that, whether you know it or not, this is like one of the second or third calls we always get, and it's just like, oh man, can you find an accountant for us? Can you find an accountant for us? Yeah. Are you going to pay for a service? Do you want to just, and then look, you can pay for the consultation so she can tell you how to prepare for her in the future. So this is not just a take your money, it's an educational situation.
Yes, this is true.
And this is in how all high net worth investor environments, ladies and gentlemen, they always push education first. You want to educate the family members on how the accounting is going. That doesn't have to be in-depth detail. Oh, they're doing the P&L. No, but they want to sit in the meetings to know, okay, this year, this month, this is the expenses I have for my individual self. This is the things that this is my pie chart for how I'm spending money out of the company or the family credit card. These are things that people like this can help you put these systems in place. So appreciate you, Larissa. Abundant returns, definitely an abundant person. Appreciate you. Is any last words for us? Going into the end of the year here, we know that people might try to cut a corner. We don't want them to cut a corner. We want them to be on a straight and narrow. So what do you say going into 2024?
Hmm. Well, you have until December 31st to make all the deductions, ex- expenses for your business trust or whatever business entity you have. So just make sure you make all your large purchases before them. Make sure you do some donations, um, some money, or either at least just clean out your closet. You can write that off too. And just make sure you get everything in order. So for the end of the year, if you need help with that, you should probably shoot us an email, and we can send you a list on all the last minute end of the year things you should do to decrease your taxes.
Okay. Is there an email you want to give them?
Yeah, you can email me, Larissa, Larisa, at abundantreturns.com.
Okay.
Or you can call the office 770-451-6330.
Got it. Short people will take the shortcut. You know. So thank you so much for coming on. We always appreciate you as a resource. If people say, "Oh man," what did this guy say earlier? He said, "Don't you do your own tax return?" He said, first of all, People think they're gonna catch you, Larissa, when you're living this life. They think that they're waiting for. Oh man, I thought you was living in trust. We are. What do you mean? Oh man. So right. So you're not gonna catch us with our trust. It's not a our trust. Not a. It's not a. Oh, this is my me my or anything like that. It's more. They're like, well, don't you do tax return for the trust? No. You know you can't. You know you need to create separation. So you know you need to go out and find somebody. Well, I'm having a hard time finding somebody. Well, what did Larissa say? You need somebody when you've went and gotten some money and started doing something. Appreciate you, Larissa, for sharing that with us today. Appreciate you for coming through. Look forward to having people reach out to you. You enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you so much. We look forward to doing another episode. We actually want to do a workshop with you in Miami in December, if you could. That would be great to have a lineup with you and some other individuals that we have. We just haven't maybe mentioned it to you privately yet, but do it. Maybe put the pressure on you publicly here and tell you, because we definitely there's just a massive opportunity right now to continually consult and work with people and really provide the higher level accounting. We promise you, just being able to see some of the people we've come in contact with, it's it's no one way to do it. Especially working with the high net worth investors, there's no, oh, somebody's got a chokehold on the game when it comes to accounting for high net worth investors. That's not the case. It's very diverse. It's people such as Larissa's company having a boutique stronghold on the companies too. So the industry as well. So we look forward to hearing your growth and continuously having you around, and appreciate you, Larissa, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and thank you everybody for listening. You all enjoy the rest of the day. Peace
Thank
and
you,
joy.
Christian.